Unexpectedly, Paul McCartney, one of the last remaining titans of rock, made a long-awaited confession.
It includes sort of art and some poems and lots of lyrics and discussing the commentaries. And I ended up anyway having a lunch with them.
He finally revealed the names of the 5 women in rock who helped mold his identity, shape his music, and in some cases, break his heart. This wasn't a casual shout-out or a press gimmick. It was a deeply personal declaration. These women aren't just musical influences, they're the ones who stood alongside the greats, sometimes outshining them. Some shared stages and stories with Clapton. Others drew admiration, and maybe envy from Lennon himself. Each one of them left a permanent mark on Paul's life. The first name he shared belonged to a woman who drifted into rooms like a breeze laced with magic. Her voice smoky, her presence iconic. When Stevie Nicks became part of Paul's universe, it felt like a dream woven from velvet and lightning. What drew him in wasn't only her ethereal vocals, it was her entire energy. She didn't just sing songs, she conjured entire worlds. They crossed paths often during the glitzy haze of the 70s, awards shows, backstage moments, after parties. Though her lyrics impressed him, it was her courage he treasured most. She kept Fleetwood Mac afloat through chaos, addiction, and inner wars, all without losing her center. Stevie once caught the attention of Clapton, who chased her mystique with eager eyes. But Paul? He simply admired her from a quiet distance. What lingered with him was her tender side, veiled beneath all that celestial glamour. Songs like Landslide and Dreams weren't mere chart toppers, they were emotional purges. Paul, ever the dreamer, didn't see her as a femme fatale. He saw a broken artist who kept surviving. If Stevie was the spell, Chrissie Hynde was the sting. Paul still remembers the jolt he felt the first time her voice hit him, gritty, urgent, full of fire. As the commanding leader of the Pretenders, she didn't ask permission. She carved out her space with grit. They found kinship in their shared passion for vintage rock and their disdain for musical fakery. Paul admired not just her talent, but the firestorm of conviction she brought with her. Chrissie became known for her no-nonsense attitude and fearless voice. She wasn't without romantic intrigues. Clapton even hoped to partner with her creatively. But that door never opened. Chrissie wasn't interested in flattery or fame games. She carved her own path and never looked back. No, it wasn't Clapton's sound, nor was it Paul's charm or anyone else's presence. That's precisely why she captured Paul's admiration. If Chrissie came with the thunder, Joni Mitchell was the horizon it illuminated. Sprawling, brilliant, etched with brilliance and pain. Her name isn't just mentioned, it's breathed with a kind of reverence. Joni Mitchell transcended music. She was a designer of feelings, not just lyrics or melodies. You pull from your identity, your scars, your memory. All those early influences, school days, literature, wandering thoughts, they became her palette. Paul once said she was a composer's inspiration, though even that barely captured her magnitude. Her songs weren't simply crafted, they were galaxies built from grief and beauty. Their paths intertwined under the sun-kissed skies of Laurel Canyon, a time when creativity danced on rooftops and egos sparked like fireflies. Clapton, Nash, Young, they all fell into her gravity. But Paul observed her in quiet admiration, magnetized by her clarity and depth. Her timing wasn't just musical, it was sculpture in motion, deliberate and haunting. She could take silence and make it sing like a hymn, as if the void itself was musical. Joni's strength wasn't in just revealing her truth, it was in letting it bleed into every verse. She didn't hold back, not even a thread, and in a world full of masks, that kind of honesty was terrifyingly luminous. Her tone could slice through stillness or fall soft like rainfall, but always left something behind. Yet the shadows followed. Her heartache after Graham Nash hardened her, made her wary and unyielding toward falseness. They called her challenging, but Paul didn't see ego, he saw protection. He saw armor that had formed over wounds too often reopened, not arrogance, but survival. She and Clapton? A spark of admiration always laced with rivalry, a blend of friction and fascination. Still, it was Paul who understood her silence, who saw in it echoes of his own ache. Joni was a reflection to him, beautiful, fractured, untamable genius. Not every inspiration came wrapped in love. Some, like Janis Joplin, were rooted in sorrow. She never sang alongside the Beatles, but offstage she collided with them in fire and feeling. Janice wasn't only a voice on a stage, she was a meteor mid-burn. Meeting her was like staring at a detonation. Raw, magnificent, uncontrollable. She cloaked her wounds in wildness, but her eyes gave away the weight she carried. That night, Paul saw her clearly, not a spectacle, but a soul trembling to be seen. Her voice, it wasn't a sound, it was a scream stitched with yearning, unforgettable. They say there was one night in San Francisco, told in hushes by those who knew. Paul and Janice vanished from the noise, found solace in whispered truths backstage. She confessed her cage, the one shaped by fame and assumption, misread as chaos when she was simply real. They never looked at her the way she hoped, simply as a musician with something to say. What she told Paul lingered in his memory long after the conversation ended. People gossiped about stolen kisses fueled by alcohol, fleeting moments on hotel balconies, and tangled nights in dim hotel bars when their lives briefly overlapped. Clapton, for his part, was deeply moved by the emotional honesty in her performances. "I swear," he told someone once, when she sang, it was like her soul was trying to break free. Paul couldn't disagree. He believed her music felt like a final diary entry whispered into a microphone. Her passing left a hollow space inside him that time never really filled. It wasn't just her absence that hurt. It was all the art they would never make, all the verses left unwritten. Even now, in quiet moments, he won't touch certain Janice tracks, not even alone. There's something too intimate about them, like opening a wound that never closed. To Paul, Janice wasn't just another star. She was a mirror of what honesty could cost a woman in a world that often celebrates male wreckage but shames female vulnerability. But then came someone who felt like a kind of belonging. Linda Ronstadt's voice echoed in his mind long after everyone else had moved on. From every collaborator, hers was the one that stirred the deepest, most private part of him. She was more than talent. She was contradiction wrapped in elegance, someone Paul could never quite define, but never stopped thinking about. He'd caught glimpses of her brilliance in award show wings and studio hallways, always from a distance. Paul had seen the way she bent the industry without letting it bend her. Their connection grew quietly during those restless LA days in the late 70s, when both were chasing something real amidst the glitter. Inside dim recording rooms, beneath the hum of amps and whispered lyrics, something began to flicker. They shared moments that went beyond music, inside jokes, creative tension, and those drawn-out goodbyes after a session ended. Paul never spelled out what they were to each other, but the stillness in his interviews, when she's mentioned, tells its own story. Clapton, too, felt her pull, though they only worked together for a brief time. Linda had an instinct for emotional survival. She never allowed herself to disappear inside someone else's chaos. That fierce independence made her unforgettable in ways no love song could explain. Paul once remarked, "There's nothing she couldn't sing that wouldn't cut you to the core." Some songs in his discography are drenched in sorrow, unnamed but unmistakably touched by her presence. Whispers in the studio hinted that some of those lyrics carried her name, her spirit. Like many of rock's enigmatic muses, Linda wasn't someone you chased. She was someone you could never quite catch. It wasn't that she drifted away. It was that she remained grounded, watching everything spin by. So why are these 5 women coming into focus now? Maybe McCartney has reached a point where lifting the veil feels like a tribute worth making. Not just for their influence or artistic collaboration, but because they haunt the corners of his creative legacy like unfinished melodies. These weren't passing references. They were deep impressions. Each of them brought a legacy, a wound, a lyric, a ghost of a track left unreleased. In a world that often tried to keep them silent, they each claimed a place, unyielding, determined. They weren't asking for a seat. They built one. They didn't just harmonize, they resisted. Each woman stood against the pressure to be polished, acceptable, and quiet. And Paul was there, watching it unfold, absorbing their fire. They were never saints, but they had thunder in their veins. Some moved like soft breezes, others arrived like storms that had names. All of them made their mark, etched in time and tattooed on the hearts of those who misjudged them. Even now, when Paul speaks of songwriting, their echoes ring through. You can still catch the shimmer of Stevie's dreams, Chrissy's sting, Joni's depth, Janice's rawness, and Linda's warmth. Their essence lingers in his melodies, and in the pauses between them. and no matter how much time has passed, not one of them has faded from Paul McCartney's memory.